Hello, everyone. Hello and welcome. And before I go ahead and present our great speaker for today, I just wanted to give you a very warm welcome. And welcome to this webinar, as I said, organized by BioPhorum, especially the secondary packaging team, in collaboration with GS1. I am your host, Alice Legat. I am facilitator at BioPhorum. And today we are talking about advancing electronic product information, or EPI. Okay, so just to give you an overview of what we will learn today, we hope that at the end of this webinar, you will have had a good understanding, first of all, of the global regulatory landscape and the status of ongoing regulatory activities related to EPI. Hopefully, you will have learned some recent experiences of EPI implementation in APAC and other initiatives worldwide. These will come from case studies from 3 of our BioPhorum member companies. They are part of the top biomanufacturers in the industry. Hopefully, you will have heard the latest updates on strategies to access digital content, and especially how the GS1 2D DataMatrix barcodes can be directly read and where these barcodes are going to take the patient. And more generally, I would say that this webinar is just a great opportunity to discuss with the experts who are actively working and involved in this topic of EPI. So we have now 51 people on the call. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And speaking of experts, I am delighted to introduce our amazing speakers for the day. We have Pete Alvarez, who is Senior Director in the Healthcare Division of the GS1 Global Office. Pete, you're working on identification and master data standards especially. We have Clay Miller, who is Senior Advisor in the Global Packaging Engineering Department at Eli Lilly. Eva Maria Garcia is also Global Packaging Advisor at Eli Lilly. Tiffany Popst is Associate Director of the Engineering Manufacturing Division at Merck. Craig Anderson is Director R&D Labeling Lead in the International Labeling Group at Pfizer. Rie Matsui is Senior Director, Regional Labeling Head for APAC in the International Labeling and Global Regulatory Affairs Group at Pfizer. And finally, we have Leo Du, who is Regional Director of the Artwork and Launch Implementation Management for the APAC markets at Pfizer. So thank you so much to all of you for being our speakers today. I'm looking very much forward to your presentations. In terms of the structure of the presentation, I will start very briefly with an introduction of the BioPhorum collaboration. Then Rie will present on the global outlook of EPI initiatives and regulatory updates. We will then move to our shared learning part with 3 case studies from Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and Merck MSD. Then Pete Alvarez will talk to us about accessing online information supported by GS1 standards. And Craig Anderson will share how the next generation of documents look like and where the 2D barcodes will take the patient. And finally, as I said, we will have time for question and answers. And just as a kind reminder, everyone, if you have any questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A box and specify the name of the presenter who you would like your question to be asked to. Okay. Right, so briefly, before I hand over to our first speaker, I just wanted to share a very quick overview of the BioPhorum collaboration and the objective of these discussion groups. So as you probably all know, BioPhorum creates an environment and provides a platform for the biopharmaceutical companies to come and collaborate, share knowledge, combine expertise, and this is to solve common challenges and problems and find solutions together for the benefit of the entire industry. So the BioPhorum community is organized in different forums. These forums focus on different areas of the industry, and so that each forum would align with the interest of our members. And this webinar in particular enters into our Fill Finish forum, whose mission is to develop and implement best practices and processes around sterile filling operation. And it also cross topics with our other forum, which is called Supply Chain to Patient, which is looking more at the back end of the filling operation and how to supply the products to the patient eventually. So in the Fill Finish forum, we have several work streams tackling different topics. And one of these work streams is the secondary packaging team, who is organizing this webinar. So the secondary packaging workstream has been collaborating since 2019, and we focus on defining and sharing harmonized best practices, guidances, and tools for secondary packaging operations. The group gathers more than 50 SMEs from more than 20 leading companies of the industry. And what we have produced in terms of deliverables or around various packaging topics, such as vision systems, serialization, line clearance practices, and of course, electronic product information. And just very briefly, especially in 2021, we published a paper titled Electronic Product Information, Implementation and Solutions Overview from a Packaging Perspective. This paper discusses the challenges of developing an harmonized API practice and harmonized solutions to be implemented globally. But of course, as you all know, since this paper was published, there have been many new initiatives that have come to light. Experience has been built, and the industry has become much more mature in this topic. So as an update to the previous paper, we decided that it would be our priority as a group to explore how the industry has evolved since then, where is the thinking standing now and where it is going, and more generally, how we can make sure that we support a harmonized global approach, harmonized standards for the implementation of EPI worldwide. So without waiting any further, I would like to hand over to our first speaker, Rie Matsui, who will provide a global outlook of EPI initiatives and regulatory updates in APAC region and across the world. So Rie, over to you if you would like to take control, and thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you very much, Alice, for your kind introduction. So let me get started the E11 initiative, Global Outlook and the Future of Digital Health. Okay, so this is today's agenda. So first of all, let me talk about the role of the labeling quickly. The labeling is a key component of the submitted dossier in clinical common technical document CTD. Only labeling is an official external document after the product is registered. There are a variety of the format, paper, electronic, and types, patient or healthcare professional, distributed according to the national requirement. I would like to emphasize that the labeling is a critical risk minimization measures. So when we discuss e-labeling, we needed to understand what the labeling document in a commercial pack are. The first and the second picture were taken in UK. The labeling in a commercial pack is written for patient, but the third picture was taken in India, and the labeling in commercial pack is written for healthcare professionals in general. So depending on the country, the pack may contain healthcare professional information, for example, US, Japan, India, and or patient information, for example, Europe. So in Asia, mostly HCP labeling is inserted in a commercial pack. And then the patient label for majority of the products are not prepared in Asian regions. That's the current situation. So what is e-labeling? There is no single universal definition of e-labeling across regions. However, in general, there are 5 aspects. As a first important step, the latest product information should be available online. Then, we should consider to improve accessibility with using QR code GS1 code so that HCP and the patient can access to trusted labeling via code on the pack. The other aspect is to eliminate the paper labeling from the commercial pack. That is environment friendly. The last two aspects are an advanced e-labeling initiative. So the e-labeling should be available as a structured contents based on a HS7 file XML. And then the labeling should be available, the labeling information should be interoperable between the system, for example, like e-prescriptions and electronic health record. And then let me speak about the benefit of e-labeling. There are a lot of benefits. The one of that most important benefit is faster sharing new product information. The most updated labeling can be delivered to HCP and the patient. It will take time to change the paper labeling in a commercial pack. And due to the using the machine readable code such as GS1 code, HCP and the patient can access the accurate product information directly. When that healthcare professional or patient read the paper labeling, font size is sometimes too small and not easy to read. But if we have the labeling in an electronic way, then much easy to read. And also our label is long enough. So we can search the necessary information in the e-labeling easily. So let me speak about the e-labeling implementation in Japan. So PMDA has required SGML version of Japan product information, which is healthcare professional labeling. And then for many years, and then had started to switch to XML in 2019. In December 2019, Pharmaceutical and Medical Device Act was amended to introduce e-labeling officially, replacing a paper labeling, and the enhancement of the amendment was implemented in August 2021. There was a 2 years transition period, and the paper labeling has been removed by the end of July 2023 last year. So in e-labeling system in Japan, MAH provides e-labeling in PDF and XML. That XML is custom XML. So e-labeling is uploaded on the PMDA website. There is a GS1 barcode on the carton, and HCP can scan that code via app. And it is linked to the PMDA website. An app for the HCP has been developed by Industry Association and GS1 Japan. And the HCP do not need to use each company app. So we have, the common app. When you scan the code, and you will see icon to choose either labeling or relevant information. When you tap that labeling, then you can see the labeling in PDF. When you tap the relevant document, you can select the other documents such as drug guide for patient, review report, and so on. And if needed, MAH have to provide the paper labeling to HCP. And in order to implement e-labeling in Japan, company needed to complete to upload the labeling on the PMDA website, also complete the linkage between GS1 code and the labeling informations. Also, the company established the process, including the updating SOP to implement e-labeling. Also, the industry educated HCP on how to use e-labeling, including the app. So as an industry, collaborate with the health authorities, PMDA, MHLW, and then we have developed such kind of the educational material to HCP like this. Also, the company completed the impact assessment for e-labeling since the paper labeling acted as a cushion and may protect product. So therefore, the package impact assessment is a must prior to e-labeling implementation. So as I said, in e-labeling in Japan, the paper labeling has been already removed from the commercial pack for all products, all prescription medicines. After starting the implementation of the e-labeling, the PMDA conducted a survey, customer survey, to understand the status of the availability, dissemination, and utilization of the safety information at the hospital, and to consider measures to promote the further utilization of the safety information for patient safety. So one of the purpose for that survey is to understand the status update of e-labeling implementations. I'd like to emphasize that the only 1.7% of the hospital and 2.7% of the pharmacies rely solely on paper package insert. When the survey was conducted, it is still mid of the transition period, so the other numbers have been improved more. So therefore, the e-labeling implementation is going very well in Japan. This slide shows the e-labeling initiative in Asia. As you can see, the Japan have implemented the 4 aspects for e-labeling, which is the most ahead in these regions. Also, there are a lot of progress of e-labeling in Asian regions. So as you can see that the 8 market have issued e-labeling guidance document. Most of them have issues around 2023 last year. There are a couple of trends for e-labeling initiative in Asia. So I will speak about more detail in the next slide. So, but the health authority website are used for e-labeling. And the QR code is put on a carton, and the e-labeling is available as a PDF by code, and the paper labeling can be eliminated from the commercial pack. It is still voluntary basis, except for Japan. I also would like to emphasize that e-labeling initiatives in Asia are mainly HCP labeling, as I mentioned earlier. The paper label for majority of the product are not prepared in these regions. So let me speak about the e-labeling initiative in Asia. In Singapore, the HSA issues that first e-labeling guidance in 2019, and also issues the finalized guidance has been published and has taken effective from April 2021. It is voluntary for companies to implement e-labeling where physical label needs not to be distributed with the pack. And based on the survey to HCP in 2019, HCP feedback was that 85% responded e-labeling is useful. In Taiwan, there are 2 types of the pilot. Taiwan FDA and trade associations completed a 6-month phase 1 pilot study for selected HCP label in 2021. The objective of that first pilot was to test e-labeling platform constructed by Taiwan FDA in order to transform to XML format. Purpose of that second pilot is removing a paper labeling. The scope of the product is injectable product used in hospital for selected HCP label, restrict to some product. And then Taiwan FDA officially announced the guidance for using e-labeling with paperless for medicine product selected prescription product category in September 2023. In Korea, MFDS issues the e-labeling pilot guidance in December 2022. E-labeling pilot project of pharmaceutical has been started from 2023. The target product are injections only used in a medical institute. Paper labeling can be removed during the pilot study, and MFDS changed the pharmaceutical law to implement e-labeling officially in January 2024. NPRA Malaysia issues that guidance on e-labeling for pharmaceutical products in April 2023, and it was effective since May 1st last year. The package insert, which is HCP label and or consumer medical information leaflet, are available electronically as PDF by a machine-readable QR code on the outer carton that linked to NPRA Quest 3 Plus system. Again, it is voluntary for company to implement e-labeling where physical label need not to be distributed with the pack. In Thailand, the new guidance for drug registrations and variations by electronic submission was issued, and it has been officially allowed e-labeling implementation. Accessibility codes such as QR code are put on the product carton. Once that accessibility code is scanned, that product information for HCP and the patient are available as a PDF or PDF file from the Thai FDA website. And the paper labeling for HCP can be removed due to the e-labeling initiative, but the patient leaflet has to be still in a commercial pack. And lastly, in Indonesia, the BPAM issues that guidance on implementation of e-labeling pilot project in September 2023. In a pilot project, e-labeling should be available on the BPAM website by a serialization barcode, QR or GS1 DataMatrix. And the BPAM mobile app is used for e-labeling purpose. And then also in Europe, the EMEA and then national e-labeling. The EMEA published on our website with enhanced information available in some market. So EMEA issues the ePI key principle, and in January 2020, and also ePI setup project has been initiated in January 2021. And then furthermore, the EMEA pilot used semi-structure format based on a common electronic standard for product informations that EU ePI common standard is now available based on FHIR. And then also there are some markets in Europe, like in Iceland, Belgium, Luxembourg, Estonia, Spain. So these markets also started the e-labeling pilot study. The purpose of that e-labeling pilot study for this market is to removing a paper labeling for hospital products. And then also, beyond APAC, also Europe, the e-labeling is still very hot topic. The other region, like Latin America and Africa and Middle East. So, for example, in Saudi Arabia, the Saudi Drug Information website has been developed, which holds all pills and SMPC for registered product in XML format. Also in Jordan, JFDA announced that they will follow the HS7 file standard, which will be linked to the DataMatrix. They have built a database, and then also they have built a database and the system and applications. They will allow appropriate health education materials to be added to support the patient understanding. Via ePI is voluntary from July July 18th to in January 2025. And also in Egypt, the FDA have issued the guidance that enable that availability of e-labeling on their platform, made accessible by a QR code added to secondary pack to support easy access of product information to users. So this is my last slide. Having the labeling information only available as a Word or PDF file is restrictive, as they are unstructured. The file cannot be used digitally. Therefore, in the future, it would be good to create the labeling in a common electric standard, which is HS7 file, offers huge opportunity for further digital transformations. It can be linkage with electric health record and e-prescription. Then, personalized labeling could be made. So this is an example in India. The fire adoption has been progressed in a healthcare system already. If the fire is introduced into e-labeling, e-labeling can be integrated into the digital health in the future. This concludes my presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Rie. And I remind everyone that if you have any questions for Rie, please pop up the question in the Q&A box, and we will address all your questions at the end of all the presentations. So I would like now to share my screen again. Sorry about that. Just 1 second. And I will start the next session of our webinar, which will be the shared learning with case studies. Case studies from 3 of our manufacturers and BioPhorum member companies. So normally you can now all see my screen again, hopefully, and we will start this shared learning session with the first case studies from Pfizer, and I would like to hand over to Leo Du, who will share the work that has been done in Pfizer in terms of impact assessment to paper leaflet removed. So Leo, over to you, and if you would like to take over from the screen. That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure, Alice. Okay, well, let me see. How do I move this? A moment. Okay, can you see my screen good?
Yes, Leo, it's
okay.
Worked. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Alice. Thanks. Well, hello, everyone. Well, since Alice already introduced all of us in the very beginning, but very quick introduction from me in case some of you missed the introduction in the beginning. My name is Leo Du. I'm from Artwork and Launch Implementation Management Team in Pfizer. So my topic for today is e-labeling implementation from impact assessment to paper leaflet removed. So at a very high level, 3 items on the agenda: e-label implementation considerations, because there are several major considerations we we take into account from the learning into from the pilot. We started with pilot, then so I would like to share some consideration for this e-label implementation. Another one is impact assessment for the removal of paper leaflet. And we'll share detail about this. And at last, I'm going to share a case study from the beginning to the impact assessment to the actual implementation with the paper removed. I do want to clarify that because I'm from the artwork team, for the e-label initiative, the end-to-end process for e-labeling, there are many other consideration steps in the whole process. However, my focus is from the artwork change and implementation management perspective. Okay. Let me move to next. Okay, all right. So e-label implementation consideration. So when we wanted to move from the physical label to electronic version, or in Pfizer, we started with pilots in several markets, and then we do have many learnings from those pilots. And here are some learning or key considerations we think that should be taken into account before we move to the implementation stage. Artwork change management adaptation. Well, of course, there will be artwork impact from this e-labeling initiative. For example, if we have the online version, then we don't need the actual physical leaflet packed in the packaging. That's one case. Some other example, like if the packaging leaflet is removed from the box, then it may also impact other components. We may need a smaller carton than before because there's no leaflet in the box. That will impact the structure of the content as well as the layout and design on the carton artwork. That's the artwork impact. We also need to add either QR code or 2D data matrix on the folding carton that can link to the online version. That's also artwork change. So there will be artwork change impact. A policy SOP process creation. Well, it was a bit challenging at the very beginning because all those markets, it was not quite steady. So different markets, because I want to try this, I want to try that, QR code to the data matrix, serialization, all many considerations at the very beginning. However, after it's becoming more and more steady, we did create SOP or job aid for this end-to-end process. As a global company, we do need some consistent process across all those markets and gave those markets some guidance to proceed those e-label initiative. So that's one important consideration. Impact assessment. I have some more detailed information in my following slide. So I'll be very quick on this page, but just wanted to make sure we are all on the same understanding for the term impact assessment here. It refers to removal of the paper leaflet from packaging box. Well, because when we want to remove, it's not that simple. We can just remove it because there will be other impacts. The quality concern, whether there will, because sometimes the paper leaflet serves as a protection purpose for the product. Then if we just remove that paper, there will be it could be some damage during the transportation. So we spent quite a lot of time on this impact assessment topic last year. I'll share more detail in following slide. Monitoring and checking. After we have more and more work in progress or complete some work, we do need to monitor the in progress status and checking where we are with this e-labeling. So we actually have a dashboard to check those work in here in Pfizer. We'll share a little bit more detail in following slide as well. The last one, various approach on pilots around the world. I think this is also a challenging now. It looks like there many markets, they they're taking different approach for this e-labeling initiative. For example, some market, they like QR code on to link to the online version. Maybe they think it's maybe easier to access. Some markets, especially those serialized market, they have serialization. They already have the 2D data matrix on carton. They don't want an additional 2D code added on the carton. That may confuse patients, so they try to combine the e-labeling serialization into one 2D data matrix. And some markets, they want to remove paper leaflet. Some market wants to keep it in packaging, and some market they even wanted to have a shorter version, like they transfer some content to be the online version, then keep rest version into a full-size paper. So all of this, I think, it should be considered before you want to create, especially create a process as a global company. Those also bring some quite challenging as well. Okay. For impact assessment for removal of paper leaflet in Pfizer, we did spend quite some time earlier last year to discuss what process should be, how are we going to do that. Well, first, a leaflet component cannot just be simply removed from packaging, as I mentioned before. There are several reasons or protect the product, or it may also impact the other components when you remove it. So the impact assessment is required, and we aligned the impact assessment should be done at the packaging site level. They should have the capacity and ability to perform this, same as all the other technical change or packaging configuration change. So that's one of the alignment. Eventually, we found a way to leverage our existing process to manage this impact assessment, and we can request this in one of our existing system. The benefit we put all this in system is that will provide transparency. So if we have many emails, hey, can you tell me whether you can remove paper leaflet for this SKU? If all of us gonna do email or communication offline, this is gonna be mess up. We were not able to check if that is the case. So when we put everything in system, that brings transparency. Metrics can be pulled out to check the status as well. Also, given the high product SKU volume in Pfizer, we also aligned. We will the packaging side will start the impact assessment upon market requirement. So, for example, if a market they have any plan to start with e-labeling, generally it starts with some products in pilot. So the market should tell the packaging side to start impact assessment for those SKUs. Then we will track those SKUs in system, because sometimes the impact assessment will take some time depending on complexity of the packaging structure. Dashboard for e-label impact assessment and in implementation. I mentioned this on last slide. When we put all those work in system, there are many in progress work, as I mentioned, for the impact assessment. It could take quite some time with some products, some packaging sites, because it may require more testing. And we also have some work we already done with e-labeling. With this dashboard, we can pull out this in progress work, then follow up or check the status for each SKU. We also can pull out the a matrix to see where we are with those completed SKUs. For example, we can see how many SKUs with e-labeling, how many SKUs with or without paper in Pfizer. So that's the dashboard brings us transparency in the organization. Okay, a case study. This is the example from one of the Glasswell products. we did probably last year or maybe earlier this year. The step 1, identify candidate products. So e-labeling is, well, I mean, I don't know the other companies, but in Pfizer, it's more like a market initiative. They have some alignment with their health authority. They wanted to do e-labeling, so it has to be started from the market. Then after they have some alignment or scope, which product will be in the scope, they will tell us, okay, here are the products we wanted to do e-labeling. Then we will start a impact assessment, send a request to packaging site. Once the packaging site receive the request for the impact assessment, then they will start doing some internal process or testing, depend whatever process they're dropping or shocking or simulate a distribution testing. Those testing, after they complete those testing, that it will move to step 3, conclusion and solution of the impact assessment. The packaging side is supposed to tell the market whether the paper leaflet can be removed or not. If not, can we have a cushion label or blank paper to be inserted in the box to protect the product? That's one option. Another option is, okay, we may need to redesign the structure of the carton, so we can remove the paper and we can also have some more protection for the product during the transportation. So all of this conclusion and solution from the packaging side, and of course market need to agree on those steps, which will move to step 4, alignment on the implementation strategy. Once the market and packaging side we align, okay, this is the approach we are going to move forward for this particular SKU, then we will move to e-label implementation, which is stage 4. It's more like a BAU stage for us. It's another request we will proceed in our system. So basically, for this e-labeling implementation, we have kind of 2 stages. First stage is to do the impact assessment. After it's done, we align on the strategy, then we will move to the implementation. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leo. And again, if you have any question for Leo, please put your question in the Q&A box and we will address them at the end. Moving on to the next case study, I would like to hand over to Clay Miller and Eva Maria Garcia from Eli Lilly to tell us about the implementation of ePI at Eli Lilly. So Clay and Eva, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to cover our case study we implemented in Japan, kind of reiterating some of the things that my colleague from Pfizer mentioned. And this is our agenda. We'll talk about the Japan case study, and then I'll hand it over to Ava to talk about some pilots that we are working on currently elsewhere. So in Japan, what triggered, as you heard earlier, this was triggered by the PMDA, that we are required to move the literature out of the packaging. So we did have an advantage here by having it available by internet in July of 21, and then we had 2 years to actually remove it from the packaging by July of last year. So we had a couple of years on the internet to get used to the literature, uploading the literature there, and we had the barcodes already on the packaging, so the healthcare providers can scan and get used to that before removing it completely out of the package. So talking through this, you know, the pharmaceutical companies, we would upload the PI to the website, which was nice. Like I say, this was driven by the Japan government agency. So they created the website to be able to store the PIs. They created the app to be used. So they were a big partner and help in this strategy for us. So we have our regulatory agencies uploading. So they're responsible for uploading the current patient information onto the website. And then the PMDA is responsible for maintaining that website as well as the app that was created. And then the healthcare providers can then take that, use the app to scan the GS1 code to be able to pull up the electronic patient information on there. So I did want to make mention, at this site, we do dry products packaging. So we'll have capsules and tablets and blister cards. We have device packaging as well. So this implementation of ePI was only for the patient information. If we have an instruction for use, that still remains in the package today. So I wanted to make mention of that. It didn't remove, in all cases, every piece of literature, but for the dry products where you don't have an instruction for use, we don't have any literature inside the packaging anymore. So what's the impact? As you heard previously, you can't just remove the literature and not look at any impacts, because sometimes the literature acts as cushioning around the pack. So say if you take a stack of blister cards and our literature C-folds around the blister cards, and then that goes into the carton. If you remove the literature, now you have extra room in the carton, and we had to perform some vibration and drop tests to make sure it didn't impact the product, or we had to make, in some cases, a reduction in the carton size to be able to not impact product quality there. So also, if you think about the packaging line, it's used to putting the literature in there and used as a guide. Again, if you had the stack of blister cards and the literature, it pushes it all in together. So we had to make modifications to the packaging line, to the guide system, to the feeder system to be able to load the product now without literature. So there's an impact to the packaging line and some requalification activities that had to go on that activity. Then there's SOP updates that you have to make on the master packaging records and the bombs to remove the literature from the package. But what are the benefits? I mean, we saw benefits a lot in our QA department, not having to, proofread all of these literatures coming in. It's now electronic, not in paper form. So we had large benefits, saving many hours per year, where the QA department then can focus on other activities. And then you think about the environmental impact as well, removing paper, and it saved 70 tons a year of just this site alone of paper reduction. So huge benefit to the environment. There's other benefits too you think of, because we're asked all the time. Just this past week, I was asked to grow the literature that we're using on a certain product by 50%. We have 25% more text that needs to go in it this year, and next year another 25%. So if the regulatory agencies and the labeling groups coming and asking to grow the piece of literature, now with it being in electronic form, there's no impact at all to the packaging lines, where before we had to evaluate if the literature is growing in size. You may have to have a new carton design and look at the impact there. So there's big benefits that way as well. What are some learnings? We had the agency the PMDA played a big role in this, creating the website, creating the apps for us, which helped us implement this. And then we had since our suppliers knew about the strategy of removing PIs out of the pharmaceutical packaging. They already started to convert their business into other areas. And so what that happened is they said, we're no longer going to supply literature to us before the implementation occurred. So we had to source and look for alternative supply of literatures until this went in effect. Oh, you go back here, sorry. So the barcode type, this was a GS1 barcode that we added to the individual product. So if it's a blister card, we had pre-printed a GS1 barcode on the blister card. If it's a device, we pre-printed the GS1 code on the label of the device. And then at a carton level, we printed online. So in the black box, we printed the GS1 code in the black box that can be then scanned and used. And then at a case level, it was online printed as well. And if we look at how to access this, the PMDA created this GS1 app, and I've actually downloaded it on my phone as well. So I've got the GS1, and and then as soon as you hit the app, it's ready to scan the barcode, and you can do it at a carton level or at the individual device or product level here. And then once you scan that, it brings up the electronic literature for the healthcare provider to see. And another feature, like as mentioned by my Pfizer colleague, there are other barcodes, say on literature. You can see this 2D code. If I use this to scan that other barcode, it gives me an error message. I don't know, it's hard to see here, but it will tell the patient, that's the wrong barcode you've scanned, that you need to find the GS1 code to be able to pull up the right information. So that's been, it's been very positive at the site to remove the e-literature. I mean, it's saved on efficiency on the lines by not having to stack literature in there. Like I say, we've saved many hours by proofreaders not having to proofread paper forms, but there's been huge benefits that we've seen in Japan so far. And now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Ava, that's going to talk about some rest of the world pilots and implementations. Thank you.
Thank you, Clay. Okay, so out of the Japan example, which seems to be best practices, the first ones going on, we also have from Lilly, we are participated in some pilots, and as you could hear from my colleagues, pilots seem to be the trigger of many of our initiatives. I also have to agree on the pilots being from different perspectives and having different approaches. So we have pilots like in Australia where we still want to print the leaflet from the pharmacies, or we have other pilots like in Belgium or Luxembourg where they have been more brave and directly starting removing the leaflet from a hospital pack. The hospital pack is kind of the easiest one because we have our nurses and doctors administering our products, and it seems like an easy environment to remove the leaflet. But in general, the pilots are being a little bit too conservative, where they are trying the e-label or the e-lid, but still keeping the leaflet inside the pack. So we have this map here where we are trying to reflect that it is coming from the West, where where the countries are being more active into removing the leaflet or the package insert, and there are other countries where we are still more conservative and trying the dual mode, what I call the dual mode, which is adding a QR code on the carton, but still keep our package insert inside of our packs. The benefits, well, we have all talked about the benefits for sure. We will reduce the paper usage, which is a big objective and something we all want to achieve. the information will be very easy to access. And also in terms of patient safety, there is an element that we all know. Making a change on a printed component nowadays has, unfortunately, a very long lead time. So if there is a safety information that we want to add in an existing literature, it takes weeks for us to be able to print that and put it in the market. So having eLead allows us to share the most current and safe information with our patients the fastest possible, which would be almost immediate. So that's a huge thing that e-labeling will bring. To improve, okay, the thing is, and I think we can all see this around the different manufacturers, is that we do not have a common strategy. But Japan, as some of the ASEAN countries, each country is thinking their own way of approaching e-literature. And that is something that is going to drag us back, because as global companies, let's say, in our approach in many different regions, having different approaches in the different countries is going to be very complicated. So kind of our ask here is if we could come with a common approach. I know it's not easy, but at least, as my colleagues were saying, if we could have a common content management or a file type or barcodes. I know in the next presentation, we are going to talk about some talks we're having with the industry, with Google, and to be able to have a more common standard way of accessing our patient information. But that is something we do really need to try to influence not only our health authorities, but all the other industries to be able to facilitate the access to the information from our products. The other thing that, of course, we are all aware of is the patient accessibility. Not everybody has a phone. Many people have a phone, but we still have to keep in mind those environments where the e-labeling is going to be hard to implement. But with those, I just directly wanted to share with you within Lilly. So we are a big company. We have, as Clay mentioned, many different types of products. And beyond the pilots or the legislation from the different countries, even within our products, we have had different initiatives that have been implemented individually in a different manner. So one example is what we have done in Europe, in one of our products in Europe, where we have many years ago now already started implementing a QR code in the carton. And when our patient scans that QR code, it will take them to, of course, a Lilly web where they're going to have to choose their country. In this case, this was for Europe, so all the countries leaflets are in there, so the patient will choose what country they're from. And then after going through those questions, what we have provided in there is a Word document. It's not even the leaflet, it's the Word document that we submitted to our health authorities. So that is one way of doing it. So how efficient is this? And I know Matutsi brought this back. It's like uploading a Word document in a web page, maybe is not bringing a lot of benefits, because at the end of the day, the font size, the way you need to scroll, or maybe it facilitates the patient to print it, but I don't know how much benefits we are taking out of this technology, right? There is one. When you have a Word document, our patients can use, for people who has sight issues, they could potentially have an app reading it for them. So this is relative benefit from the paper copy. So that's what we call the unformatted text. We have uploaded a Word document. Another example of something that we are doing in Lilly, funny enough, within Lilly, we don't have yet a common approach. We are doing what we think is best, depending on the pilot, the country, the product type, and also the business unit. Another way of doing the same thing is, again, putting a QR code like this example in the carton. We typically are using mostly QR codes printing in our outer packaging, in the carton. And then again, that will take them to a Lilly web page where they will use the product that they want, the presentation that they want to get the information from. We will ask them several questions about whether they are really patients of that product, and ask them whether they want to have the package insert or the IFU. Instructions for use. in that case, if that's what the patient chooses, it will bring them a PDF, which is really the PDF that we print in and we have inside our packs. Again, a PDF uploaded without an enriched content is relatively helpful, but we are not yet getting the benefit of the XML files that we will be wanting to implement across our products, right? And another example, which is to me a very good like the direction we should be taking, and Lily will probably take very, very soon, is we have recently implemented this in the US market, where for those of you who are not from the US, in the US market, there is they use copay cards, which is cards that are provided to customers on sample packs, where they will provide a discount for them to access the medicine. We have removed those from the sample packs, and we have implemented a QR code in the carton. This is one of those cases where we have squeezed the use of the e-technology as much as possible, and when they access there is information, legal information about the discount, there is videos about the product, and we are really enriching the content and providing all the information to our patients. So this last example that we have not implemented in many commercial products, we have just implemented it in our sample packs, is the approach that Lily is going to take. So in Lily, we do have a labeling group, and we are establishing, as my Pfizer colleague was saying, a process, and at least to have a standard that we will apply as long as the different legislations allow us. But for sure, we need to keep an eye on the industry and on the standards. And again, I keep calling standard because otherwise we are not going to facilitate the information, because nobody's going to be wanting to download a Lilly app, a Pfizer app, a government app. So I will just call for standardization and using the technology in a wise manner. And the other example, the one example, and I already mentioned this with the pilots, that where we have been able to remove completely the leaflet. It was a vial, it's a hospital pack again. This was part of the Luxembourg pilot, and this has been, I think, up to now the only leaflet out of Japan that we were able to completely remove, and we are providing without a leaflet, and it's a hospital pack, and the pilot was providing the hospital a webpage where they could potentially go and download the leaflet if they wanted it. So I think this was the most advanced example of removing paper from our packs, where in the rest of the examples we're still keeping the paper in there. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share with you, being practical with some examples, so you could see how Lily is approaching e-labeling. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eva, and thank you so much, Clay, as well, for this presentation of Eli Lilly. Again, as I always say, if you have questions for Clay and Eva, please pop them up in the Q&A box. And we're going to move to the third and last case study before the next session on accessing digital information and building from the information that was already shared. So I'll hand over to Tiffany Popes for our case study from Merck and the implementation of e-leaflet project at Merck MSD. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you. Thank you, Alice. So hello, everyone. I'm Tiffany Popst. I work as part of the Global Distribution Components and Systems team at Merck. And so today you've heard a lot of really wonderful information from Leo, Clay, and Eva around how e-circular has been implemented in Japan as well as within other markets. So I won't be repeating the information. There's a lot of overlap or a lot of commonalities between the different organizations, which makes sense considering quality requirements as well as regulatory requirements that have really pushed us in similar directions. So I'll just take a few minutes to talk about what's unique to Merck, what's our high-level strategy, and maybe list some examples that haven't been mentioned yet. So the scope of my slides really are between the packaging line and operations and the packaging technology teams and design of the packaging. So as you've heard several times, this was a 2-year to implement effort for Merck. That meant that we needed to assess and change over 100 SKUs. And this, as you can imagine, was a highly resource-intensive effort between all the different facets of our organization. So as similar to other companies, some of our cartons required new complete redesign. So that's new sourcing of the cartons and then going through some of the steps that you heard of equipment line validation, new software, new hardware. And then while others maybe just required new qualification because of removing that insert. Here's just, again, to illustrate that advantage of streamlining the process. So you see in blue, the process with actual leaflets within Japan, and then the orange box is kind of this new streamlined process. So in addition, of course, we had the same, similar cost and environmental savings with eLeaflet. So I'll spend a couple of minutes here just talking about the overall strategy. So for our organization, because there was such a large number of SKUs that were impacted, we really started by assessing all those different presentations and seeing where we could group our images and assess, risk as well as what changes are needed within those different groups. So that included images like single cart count files within cartons without partitions, multi-count packs with internal features, packaging devices, tablet bottles, also tablet blister packs, bags, pretty wide range of products that were impacted. So once we had all of that information assembled with the critical attributes for each of those, each of the SKUs, it was determining, well, what are the next steps? Where do we have existing data to support the change? Where do we need to collect new data through that shock and vibration compression testing? And where do we have an opportunity to perform justifications and risk assessments? All of this work was done in close partnership with our operations teams, because in parallel to these assessments are those assessments of the line. So Clay had mentioned one of the challenges of processing issues, which was when you remove the insert, now the system that actually folds the flaps, there's a need to adjust to allow those systems to guide into place. There's also removing the insert can create surprising challenges, right? So if you have a carton with a partition and a vial and remove the heavy insert from one half of the carton, now that carton may be off balance and some adjustments need to be made there. Another example, so just of some of the challenges. So even if we were able to move to a point of performing a qualification of the packaging, just having that extra room can create its own challenges. So we did have instances where we went to a new carton design and the new design failed and we quickly needed to pivot. Or maybe there were circumstances where just having the extra room would cause the primary packaging to now be in a new orientation or to be able to move to a new orientation, which may not meet the product shipping and handling requirements. So very resource intensive effort. And it really came down to having that prioritization strategy, being able to manage the multiple testing schedules and identify appropriate owners for those, as well as to generate that documentation to meet those internal quality standards, but then also the local regulatory requirements. Being able to manage those schedules as well with the new line equipment, with software changes, and being able to establish really that target implementation date that can be communicated out through the organization. The last bullet point I have there is contingency plan. So as we have these types of asks from different agencies with very specific timelines, in the case of Japan, a law went into effect and we really had to be shipping by a certain date without leaflets and using the barcodes. So it's helpful to have well, what do we do if something does not pass? So is there any flexibility in that launch time? How can we really prepare our sites for having any of those gaps as we move through these qualification and validation activities? Or could there even be an option to use a blank insert in some markets while we're able to get all of our packaging and systems up to the requirements? So all of this has really led us to being proactive, and I think you've heard that a lot in the presentations today. So it's identifying what markets are considering changes or moving to EPI, running those pilot programs where possible, and then also just developing a global strategy. So how can we test early, integrate this into new qualifications, and really just be prepared as we move forward with EPI.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for your sharing your experience. And again, if you have questions for Tiffany, please write them in the Q&A box. We will now move to our next part of the webinar, which will be around advances in strategies to access digital content. And this is very echoing the presentations and the experiences that were shared already by Pfizer, Eli Lilly, and Merck, in the sense that we do need to have a global strategy, global standards, and harmonized approach, especially on how to access this digital information and how we can use one single way for the patient to access the contents. And for these topics, I would like to hand over to Pete Alvarez, who will talk to us about what has been done to use the GS1 DataMatrix 2D barcodes for this purpose. So thank you so much, Pete, and over to you.
Thank you so much, Alice. It's a pleasure to be with everyone. So a lot of good information has been shared by the speakers that preceded me, and I have to tell you, I'm excited by what I'm hearing. Congratulations to all of you on the success and the lessons learned, and specifically sharing what you've learned. So then the question becomes, what does GS1 have to say about all of this? Well, a couple of things, but I'm going to start a long time ago. And there's a reason why I'm starting over 2 decades ago. Just to explain a little bit about how the industry got here with 2D barcodes. Because today there's a lot of discussion around 2D barcodes, QR code, DataMatrix, and GS1 DataMatrix. Plus, on the retail side, those of you that sell products over the counter in retail, directly to the consumer, there's the migration for 2D scanning at point of sale, which also comes with a whole different set of talking points and narrative. And so I wanted to just accentuate how the industry got here. And it really started over 20 years ago by people that I call them visionary, because what they were looking at back in 2001, 2002 was well ahead of every other industry that was barcoding. And these people actually are still around. One of them is from Pfizer. His name is Rich Hollander. If you're from Pfizer, you know who he is. Another gentleman from, I think he was a Baxter at the point in time, Peter Tomicki. And so and a lot of, like yourselves, that were packaging professionals that were looking at how did they deal with these challenges? They were looking at challenges from the supply chain side. You can see this pack of this actual pack that was shared with us back in 2003, 2004. You see the multiple barcodes that this pack has. And this is still a problem, by the way, this multiple barcodes thing. We'll get to that in a minute. But there also, these companies were faced with regulatory challenges. And you see that on the other graphic there. And so they were looking at a way to try to comply or address all of these requirements from the supply chain side and the regulatory side. And back then, there were already some regulations in a handful of countries that were looking at DataMatrix as the barcode to comply with traceability on the pharmaceutical side. And so this is before 2005. The industry came to GS1. And in 2005, GS1 Healthcare was formed as a result of all of this. Eventually, back up closer to the 2010s or so, GS1 DataMatrix was then chosen by the industry to be the single 2D barcode to identify products, product identification and traceability. And eventually beyond that, then the 4 data elements became the common data elements, the G10, batch, lab, expiry, and serial, to drive harmonization in the evolution of regulatory requirements in different parts of the world. So you can see the kind of the timeline of where the industry was back then. So where are we today? That was then. This is now. This picture, this map is a lot of detail and it's kind of hard to read maybe. But the point of this is that it's a representation. By the way, this comes from the GS1 Healthcare Public Policy Work Group, which meets bi-weekly, and this is the result of the industry and what they're telling us. And the map shows the variety of requirements there are on 2D barcodes. You can see that DataMatrix, or GS1 DataMatrix, both are listed in many countries. But one point to keep in mind here, which is very important to the industry, the QR code is not used or required anywhere today for product identification. This is important because, as my colleagues have preceded me have said and have illustrated with their packs, GS1 DataMatrix is being used to comply with these requirements. So if you then have to put another barcode, then you end up with 2 barcodes in the pack, and that's exactly what the industry is trying to work on, is minimizing multiple barcodes. So this is the situation today all over the world. But as my colleagues from J&J said a while ago, and I took this slide from them, and this is a really good slide, it's not just about regulatory compliance, and as all the speakers before me have already illustrated, it's this particular topic, this discussion that we're having today, is about digital information. So whether you call it e-labeling or e-pills or EIFU if you're on the medical device side, or ESNPC, whatever you want to call it, right? There's a lot of activity around this. And by the way, this data matrix here is a J&J data matrix. And so if you have the Scan Matrix app on your phone, I have it here, I'm going to show you in a minute. If you scan that data matrix with that Scan Matrix app, you will see that it'll take you to their leaflet, their online leaflet. And Scan Matrix is an app that was developed for demonstration purposes. I'm going to try to do this for live here. There we go. I'm going to try to connect a little bit and scan the barcode and show you how that works. But if you scan it, it'll take you to that website, and you'll see that it'll take you to the leaflet information for that particular product. Pretty much the way my colleagues have already said in other cases. As far as we know, and I think after today's presentation, we're probably going to go back and compare all the maps that you shared with us. Thank you, to make sure that we have this correct. And this continues to be updated through the Public Policy Work Group. There's a lot of activity around this digitization of products. And so there's a lot to be said about this. Because of this, GS1 Healthcare developed this paper. And when you get the slides, it'll be hyperlinked, so you can actually click it and get to the website. But this paper was developed by GS1 Healthcare, by us for GS1 Healthcare, and approved by the healthcare leadership team. And it's intended to provide guidance at a general level for health authorities primarily, because at the end of the day, that is what's driving a lot of this activity. You've heard about what's happening in China and Japan, other parts of the world around this digital transformation from paper to leaflet. So this document will explain a little bit about this. And so I encourage you to read it after today. If you have questions, please reach out to one of us, myself or someone else at GS1 Healthcare. Also, this paper includes a listing of these activities, and you already heard about some of them already. I'm not going to cover all of them, but I'm going to highlight some things in addition to the one in Japan, which I personally think is a really innovative approach because it gives the health authority control of the direction between the scan of the barcode and where you end up online. And so I think to me, from that perspective, is I think that's a very important example. There's one that's not listed here for good reason, but when the war in Ukraine started a while ago now, unfortunately, there was an implementation that was driven by FBI, which used that ScanMatrix app. And the intention was to provide information about medicines to Ukrainian refugees that are going into Poland in Ukrainian. And so there are about a dozen or so manufacturers that participated in that, and they translated their leaflets, put it online, and made it available to the Ukrainian refugees that were going into Poland at the point in time. So another example of that, the barcode that you're already putting on your packs because of regulatory compliance and supply chain, like we saw slide a little while ago, can also be used for this purpose too. And so this is all around this digital transformation paper to leaflet. I want to mention something here that's not in the slide, but it occurs to me, I want to bring it up. A couple of years ago, the Australian Hospital Pharmacists Association published a paper, which is quite interesting. And I can provide the link later on, Alyssa, if that's of interest to the audience. And one of the areas that they talked about in that paper was sustainability, the impact of removing the paper from the pack, which has obvious operational and cost benefits, but it has one more, is what they were saying, the association in Australia, which is that the sustainability, lowering carbon footprint. So it's not something I think that doesn't often get highlighted, but it's almost a side benefit, I would say, but it is a benefit of this transformation that's happening. So congratulations to all of you for driving this. What am I getting at? Well, this is a GS1 barcode, it's just one DataMatrix, and I have it on another screen. The barcode's a little bigger. I'm going to scan it. And what it shows you is when I scan it with that same app, the ScanMatrix, I scan that DataMatrix, shows you what's encoded in the barcode, but also tells you over here more. And if you tap on it, more information. Yeah. You know what happens when you try to do a live demo? It never works. I did this while other speakers were speaking, and it did work. And unfortunately, I'm running into a problem. But you know, Alice, I'm persistent. I'm going to try one more time because I know that it works. There we go.
And just as you try, Pete, just to let everyone know that all the links that are embedded on the slides can be accessed directly. So if you click on the blue hyperlinks, you can have access directly to the information. You can do that directly from the window that we are sharing.
So unfortunately, the leaflet for that particular barcode has been taken offline. My bad. But the point of this slide is that if you have a JSON DataMatrix, any or JSON barcode of any type, could be any N13, could be a JSON 128, and you have an app that's programmed to scan it and connect to a resolver, then that resolver can contain a multitude of different links, not just for the paper, for the digital version of the paper, but it could include videos. It could include a link to an SMPC if that's what you want to communicate. If it's being used on a consumer level, the way it could be in Japan, for instance, then you could have an endless amount of information about this. But the challenge with this, and I'll say this, is that it requires an app. There's a lot of discussion around concerns around apps, meaning that not everyone wants to have a multitude of different apps for different purposes. And so while an app like ScanMatrix works extremely well for this application, and by the way, it brings a certain level of security compared to using a QR code. And some of the discussions that are taking place with some of the manufacturers that we're talking with is that if it's a QR code with a URL, then that can be redirected to another source. So if you look at counterfeiting products, that opens up the door for a multitude of different possibilities that we wouldn't want to happen. And so not having the URL on the barcode brings another benefit in addition to implied security of controlling the scan. And let me be clear, the security is not in the barcode. It's about how you direct the scan of the barcode to the content online. And so if you control it with an app, you control it with a resolver, and you have control over that, over where you're directing, whether it's a healthcare professional or consumer, a patient, to the content online. And so if the content changes over time, then there's no need to change the barcode on the pack because there is no URL on the pack. So you remain in control. And when Craig Anderson comes up in a little while, you'll hear from him about how online content could be managed or is managed, which I think gives a lot more insight into this. So this is this piece. When you get the slides and you click on more information here, you will get to a paper that explains how to do this with an app and your favorite solution provider. So that's all there. I'll leave that with you. However, because it requires an app, a couple of years ago, believe it or not, about 2-3 years ago, our leadership team, the GSM Healthcare leadership team, started having discussions around the need to have Apple and Google and their cameras on their mobile phones natively recognize a GS1 DataMatrix the way they do a QR code, knowing that the GS1 DataMatrix will not contain a URL, by the way. And so Google has responded to this, and we've had discussions with Apple, and they support this approach too, for what I'm about to tell you. But what Google has shared with us, and this is what I can share with you, this is a live discussion that's going on, is current, so there are no technical specifications that I can point you to, but what I can share with you is the intent of the concept. So if you have apps like Chrome or the Google app, if you look inside the bar where you search, there's Google Lens, which is a function that Google provides. You can take a picture of anything, and it'll direct you to something online about the content, about whatever you took a picture of. So the idea is that if you could use Google Lens to scan a GSM DataMatrix, which would include just what you're seeing on the slide, the GTIN, the batch lot, expiry, and even a serial number if it's on there, whatever it includes in there, whether it's just a GTIN or all of these data elements, whatever's on the GSM DataMatrix, the Google Lens could then be redirected to a redirection resolver that would then contain rules. So for whoever owns the G10, and you saw the manufacturer that are on the call today, any manufacturer would then be able to include rules in here about their G10s. And from a GS1 perspective, this can be easily managed by either the GS1 company prefix level, which is, by the way, how J&J did that pilot in Singapore. We redirected from our resolver to their content with the DataMatrix app. And you can put rules in here and redirect it to whether it's a company's resolver or a company's website, if you want to use, or a web service, or whatever method the manufacturer wants to use to control digital content. It redirects the scan of the barcode right to the content of the manufacturer. This allows the manufacturer to regain control, or remain in control, rather, is what I'm trying to say, of that scan. And you as a manufacturer, you know the requirements in any country. So if one country allows you to serve this content directly from your website or resolve, you can do so. If it requires you to redirect it to another source, the health authority, for instance, you can do that too, because you're able to do that with your web service. Your webmaster is able to do that. So that's the concept that's being discussed. And by the way, let me be clear here. I'm not implying that Google would operate a resolver. They won't. They will make modifications to Google Lens so that it can connect to a redirection resolver. Who operates that resolver is still in discussion. There's a preference from the industry that's being addressed, but that's not being determined. But the concept that I wanted to share with you is that if this was possible, then you don't have to have a specialized app. You could use Google Lens. And if you have an iPhone like I do, then you could still use Google Lens. This is what's happening. And if when something more is available, we will share that with you. I'm aware that I've shared a lot of information with you and pointing to a lot of different sources. They're all on this slide here, including previous presentations that have been done. And Alice, I'm going to point to this recording if it's ever made available publicly, because it's been phenomenally insightful. So it's all there. And so thank you for the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about what GS1 Healthcare is doing on behalf of our membership. And I hope that was helpful. Again, I apologize for my live demonstration that didn't work, but as you know, what happens with live demos.
It's the
You think
Murphy
it
law.
would. I can guarantee
It's
one
always
thing
like
though.
that.
As soon as I go off camera, I'm going to do it again. It is going to work. I know this.
It will. The Murphy law, that's it. Thank you so much, Pete. And thank you for keeping us on time. Thank you so much for all this insightful information. We will move on to the last presentation of today before the question and answers. So I would like to hand over to Craig Anderson from Pfizer, who will give us the very last bit of the journey. If you remember, we started from the initiatives in different regions and what are the regulatory expectations and activities. We moved to the ongoing experience with the Japanese implementation and the current situation, what is being done all over the world. And now, after Pete has showed us how we can use the DataMatrix barcode to directly access the digital content and information, Craig is going to share with us how we can enhance the patient experience and where these 2D barcodes are going to bring the patient in the future. So over to you, Craig.
Right, thanks, Alice. And do you want me to take control? Is this where I...
Yes, please, if you can take control.
Okay, got it. Okay, hi everyone. So we've been talking about the leaflets, and let's talk about the patient experience and where we want to take the patient. So we've talked about removing the paper from the pack and getting the QR codes, the DataMatrix codes in the packs. And now we want to talk about, say, okay, well, we want to take patients to something that offers them a better experience, because we don't want to go through all this effort to remove the paper and then all we do is send them to a PDF. That's just a wall of text, and it's electronic, but it's not that much better than their current experience with the paper. So looking at this slide here on the left-hand side, so these are some images from our colleagues at Gravitate Health, which is a project that's co-funded by the European Commission and FPA. And I like showing this slide with these images because it really captures the experience, the patient experience right now. And you look at this right picture here, where she has a classic leaflet folded up, origami style piece of paper with small size font, and it's just a wall of text. And then on the left-hand side, it's a little bit small, you can't see it, but what she's holding up is in her purse, she holds a handwritten list of what medications she's on. And she's on about 12 or 13 medications. And she has the list of the name of the drug, and in some cases she has the strength and the dosing schedule that's there. So hopefully we can all agree that we can offer patients something better, an option to use something better. It's not, one size doesn't fit all cases, but this is just one potential option, a digital option that will offer patients some opportunities to get information in a format that is more tailored to their needs and their tastes. So about 2 years ago, another colleague on the Gravitate Health project, Petter Herlin, and his team at a Cursus hospital, they made this diagram here that you see on the right-hand side. And they made an app called Capable. And this is like an e-health app in Norway that keeps track of the patient's allergies and intolerances, their medical conditions, what other medications they're on, what conditions they're on. And what they've done here, this was an early mock-up of how personalization could work if we adopted structured labeling. And what you see here is, so Maria is the persona, and the persona is a 75-year-old Norwegian woman. And here, this is the leaflets all for this drug. Here you see this part in gray is still in Norwegian, but this gray part is related to pregnancy. So what it's happening here is the app is looking at her personal information, and it is looking at the structured information in the patient leaflet, And then it is choosing, based on its rules, it is suppressing that text because it is not related, it's not relevant to her. In this example here, it's showing that she is allergic to lactose or lactose intolerant. And here it is highlighting the text in the label that references the fact that this drug contains lactose. So it can recognize that the drug contains lactose, she's lactose intolerant, and it can flag that for her. Whether it just highlights the text and nothing else, or whether it gives her a notification saying, talk to your healthcare professional. It's not shown here. What we can also do is flag things like drug interactions. So as I mentioned here in this scenario, she's in a polypharmacy situation where she's in about 12 different medications. So what you can do is you can compare the structured data in the leaflets and say, okay, well, if she's on 12 medications, she's about to take number 13, well, the app could look at the interactions and compare the actions within the label, or could use real-world evidence and make a comparison and flag for her if, let's say, drug number 13 interacts with number 5 and number 7. It could flag that and say, oh, there's a potential interaction here, notify your physician, as an example. And this was an early mock-up of how this could work. And I'm very happy to say that this is all possible and can all be done right now. We've tested it. We've kind of documented the method of how to do this. And I'll give you some examples of how it's being used. And the driving force behind this capability is FHIR. So as Rie had mentioned earlier, this is an international standard. And without getting into all the technical details, FHIR is designed to solve the interoperability issue in healthcare. So FHIR allows us to adopt a common technical language for exchanging health information. And like the internet, you can exchange information across devices seamlessly without any trouble. This is what FHIR brings to healthcare. So anytime you think FHIR, think it's the internet for health. That's one thing. Another way of looking at it is it makes the health information more granular, and it allows us to describe health information, including product information, in a much more detailed fashion. And then, as Ria had mentioned, the fact that it makes the information interoperable, the fact that when we make the leaflets and the SMPC into FHIR, that makes it automatically interoperable with the healthcare system. So with e-prescription systems, e-health systems, or health record systems similar to Capable or things like the NHS app in UK or other apps throughout the world. So, as I mentioned, one thing about FHIR that it does is it makes the information, it allows us to describe the leaflet in far more detail than is possible right now. So whether it's a PDF, which is essentially just a block of text, and it's even much more detailed and much more accurate than SPL. So SPL, for example, cannot accurately describe packaging, whereas with FHIR, you can accurately describe any kind of packaging scenario, whether you have 2 different products in one blister, or whether you have a complex kit with all kinds of different components to it. All of that can be accurately described in FHIR, and FHIR is aligned with IDMP as well. The IDMP is based on FHIR. You exchange information, IDMP information with FHIR. So when you look at the product information, you look at the leaflet, and you break it down into components, and these are the FHIR components. And you say, okay, well, I've got patient information, I've got images, got information about the product, I've got information about the organization, and so on. But it allows us to go even further and say, well, I have patient information in the leaflet and the QRD, and I want to go down even further. So it allows us to look at things in terms of sections, allows us to look at things in terms of topics, and we can structure data about those topics. So there's a FHIR resource called Clinical Use Definition, and that allows us to add structured information about the indication, contraindication, undesirable effects. There is a FHIR resource called medication statement. And what that allows us to do is to develop a structured way of presenting dose instructions. So what is happening here is we're taking the leaflet, the content of the leaflet, and we're breaking it down into these structured components. And when you break the label down into those structured components, this is what it looks like. So some of you may be familiar with this view. It's called a knowledge graph. And so you take structured data and you graph it. And so the way this works is each of these blue boxes is a FHIR resource. So FHIR stands for Fast Healthcare Interoperability Resources. So that's the R in FHIR. You can think of the resources, they're essentially templates. They're like prefabricated templates for a particular object or topic. So for example, you have a resource or a template for an organization. You mean a standard template for an address, an organization's name and identifier. You have ones for ingredient, one for packaging, one for your regulatory authorization, and so on. And you go down the list. So each one of these blue boxes is one of those templates for a particular topic. So ingredients is one each for each ingredient, one each for the market authorization holder, the manufacturer. And then the lines between these, the blue boxes, demonstrates that there's a relationship. So what you're looking at here in this first bubble here, you'll see in the middle, you'll have the manufacturers and you'll have the ingredients pointing to the manufacturer. So it's tracking who manufactured the ingredients, who manufactured the drug, who packaged the drug to whatever level of detail. Over here in this blob over here, this is some of the clinical resources. So over here, you have the clinical use definitions. So meaning these are the interactions, the indication, the contraindications. So each one of these is itemized and managed, granularly. And if you open up any one of these, you will see that you'll have the code. So when you hear people talking about structured data, this is what they're talking about. So this is not a normal view, by the way. So when you talk about FHIR, this is not what I'm saying, normal people would look at this. This is more like a developer's view, more of like a data scientist view. And you can imagine, so this is a real FHIR API for a drug called Talzenna that Pfizer's been working with. And so there's 64 of these objects. And it ranges anywhere from, depending on how much you pack in there, it's like 60, 80, 90 plus of these resources that describe everything in here. So this is only just one product. So you can start to imagine what this looks like if you converted your entire portfolio to this format. And you start to think about what kind of data analysis you can do. So for example, like an impact analysis, and you want to say, well, which of the drugs in my portfolio contain, titanium dioxide? Which of the, I'm changing something with the manufacturer, I'm changing something with the packaging. Show me all drugs that have this pack type, this stopper that I'm going to change. And you can do this, almost instant impact analysis to see what is impacted by that change, what products or what aspects of the product are impacted by that change, or even labeling text, for example. So another use case is personalization. So the fact that the content is in such a granular format, when you look at it like this, is very easy to start cherry picking different bits and pieces or displaying different bits and pieces based on different rules or based on different scenarios. So one example of that, so in this personalization example, so the reason why I was showing you the graph for Talzenna is Pfizer prepared this personalization capability. So on the product page and this is in production, so this isn't just a concept, this is in production. It's been in production for a couple months, so it's on the real Pfizer website for Talzenna. So the UK site for Talzenna, the product page, there is an option for patients to select personalization, a personalized version of the leaflet. So they click on that, and then they're given a questionnaire. And it's just 5 very simple questions. Are you male or female? How old are you? Are you taking any other medications? Are you allergic to anything? And then there's 3 strengths, and you choose which strength you're on. And then based on that, those answers, there are rules that will highlight and suppress content and present the patient with something that is personalized. So in this example here, the patient always said that they were on cyclosporin and St. John's wort. And then you hit OK, and then it gives them a personalized view of the label. And this is the personalized view. So as you can see here, it truncated the list of interactants to show the ones that the patient wanted to target. And you'll notice here there's other text that does not go away. So for example, if there's something safety related, then that's the kind of information that will stay there no matter what options are selected. But if there's a section for, this section is for women, this section is for men, then it might, if you choose women, then it would hide the section for men as an example. And then you get to this section about ingredients and packaging. If you chose, the first strength, the 1 milligram tablet, then it will hide the information for the other 2 strengths since they're not applicable, and hide the packaging information for the not applicable strengths as well. So another example that we're looking into, so as I mentioned, with that resource that allows us to structure the dose instructions. So this can sometimes be a tricky thing for patients, and gets into compliance and gets into health literacy and math literacy. So it's a tricky area. So one area that we're looking forward to and experimenting with is if you can structure the dose instructions, then allows us to interact with different apps or different capabilities, like different ways of presenting the information. So the UK's NHS prepared a FHIR standard that outlines how to structure dose instructions. So what if, and this is a future scenario, we haven't done this yet, but what if you had your dose instructions, and what if the patient could just scan something like a QR code or DataMatrix, and it would automatically put that information into, let's say, a health app, like Apple's health app and medications module. And what if it could enter the dose schedule that has been prescribed to them into the app automatically for them to avoid them having to do it manually and avoids any errors and mistakes? Or present the information in a more graphical format that's easier for them to understand. And then you get into some of these complex packaging scenarios. So whether it's you have a shared pack situation, and like in the Middle East and the Gulf countries and Jordan, you might have a shared pack, and the Jordanian Health Authority might want the patients directed to the JFDA page, whereas the other health authorities might be okay with the patients being redirected to their country page. You have different languages, for example, in Canada, where you go to a landing page, you have to choose a language, and then you go to a page that's not just one document. Maybe there's several documents, like a Dear Healthcare Professional letter, patient information, and so on. So there's multiple options that the patient has to choose. Or you might have a situation where the CMC details change. Let's say the ingredients change. Let's say the packaging changes. Then how do you redirect the patient to the right content? And right now, these scenarios are things we deal with all the time, and PDF makes things, it's not exactly helping. Because by the time you get to this right-hand side, you only have so many options when it comes to PDF. However, now, as I mentioned, with the granularity that FHIR brings to us, if the content of the leaflet is now granular, now it allows us the capability to dynamically generate a leaflet based on what is needed. So if I have CMC details for product X, I could dynamically generate the content needed for that leaflet. or CMC details Y, I could dynamically generate. So you could go get the granules for this one, go get the granules for this one, and present something that is developed on the fly and maybe even potentially tailored to that patient's needs in tandem with the app that they may be using. So, interest of time, I'll stop there and hand it back over to Alice.
Before wrapping up, I wanted to thank very much all the presenters again. This has been a huge amount of precious information, and as a BioPhorum community, we are working on more regarding ePI. We are currently discussing the impact of removing the paper leaflet and how this has an impact on protection of the products. So from a distribution point of view, at the moment, this is our focus. We will have another focus on other aspects of how we can be operationally ready to remove the paper leaflet. So if you have any question or if you would like to join these discussions, please reach out to me via email and I will be able to circle back and reply to you. Again, thank you so much to everyone for participating, asking questions and listening. And I wish you a very good rest of your day and a very good rest of your week, everyone. Thank you again.